Greetings, book lovers everywhere. I'm E-Train and welcome back to E-Train Talks. Most of you listening know that I'm a huge supporter of literacy and reading. The whole reason why I started my book podcast was in the hopes of inspiring others to love, reading, which is why I'm super happy and honored to be joined by the award-winning author, illustrator, and literacy advocate, Jarrett Lerner. Jarrett has written and illustrated 4 graphic novel series, including the Hunger Heroes series of graphic novel chapter books. The second book is coming out in a few weeks, and I just recently read the first graphic novel, which I loved. Jarrett's books feature fun and lovable characters, as well as meaningful themes like empathy, acceptance, and friendship. So aside from working on books, Jarrett spends a lot of time advocating for literacy. He co-founded and co-organizes the hashtag Kids Need Mentors and hashtag Kids Need Books programs. And he's also the creator of Jarrett Lerner's Creator Club. And on top of all that, he has an incredible selection of merchandise, from shoes to shirts to water bottles, that all promote literacy and share the message that books shouldn't be banned and everybody deserves to have a book because there's a book out there for everybody. So he also makes time to visit schools and libraries, spreading reading joy to kids. Jarrett is definitely a literacy hero, and now we get to hear firsthand about his amazing journey. And without further delay, welcome to E-Train Talks, Jarrett.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that awesome introduction.
Well, thank you. You're a huge inspiration for me and so many other advocates out there. I mean, I know I want to have a merchandise just selection. Like, I think that's super cool. Like, you're spreading positivity and literacy, not just through the books that you write, but also through other forms, like your blog, which is pretty popular, and you post a lot of interesting stuff there, and your selection of merchandise, which is, it's just really, it's hard to put a word onto it, just cool and amazing that you do that you're inspiring kids and adults alike, which is something that all literacy advocates want to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you are an inspiration right back. I'm glad for the opportunity to get to talk to you directly, because we've communicated a bit online, and just seeing what you're doing and being an advocate too is amazing. And for you to be doing it is extra awesome, I think, because you are a kid and other kids are going to see you and say, oh man, I've got a voice. If I care about something, I can do something about it. I can share and spread the word about these things that are important to me. So you are a huge inspiration right back.
Thank you. I hope that I inspire some kids to just be passionate about certain topics and fight for what they believe in. That's one of my goals. And I recently read Hunger Heroes, Missed Meal Mayhem, the first volume of the Hunger Heroes series, and I loved it. It has a perfect amount of silliness, lovable characters, and important messages, all packed into the pages of a colorful, entertaining graphic novel chapter book. So my question to you is, why did you decide to write the Hunger Heroes story? And can you fill us in a little bit on what the Hunger Heroes might be up to next?
Yeah, so I like making books that kids are going to want to read, that kids are not going to be able to help but read. Funny, exciting, adventurous, with mystery, with cliffhangers. And I also like to leave them, should they want it, something a little bit meatier to chew on and think about. And so these books are sort of modeled after the cartoons and comic books that I grew up reading on and watching on like Nickelodeon and stuff when I was a kid. But then they've got this element of people being hungry. So in this first book, there's a kid who doesn't get breakfast on his way to school. And so this plot line was inspired by me learning about the millions of kids across the country who do not have meals regularly before they head to school. And some of them are lucky enough to have free breakfast programs in their schools, but a lot don't. Millions, tens of millions of kids. And I can barely have a conversation if I'm hungry. If I haven't eaten, if I'm hungry, I can't do anything. I'm a mess. And to think that kids are out there trying to excel in school, which is so important on so many levels, and they don't have breakfast in their belly, I just felt awful and wanted to do something about it. And so I tend to get excited about some sort of thing, whether it's an issue in the world or it's an interpersonal issue, like a friendship issue, and that tends to sort of meld with my zany, silly side, and it creates this book that is hopefully unputdownable and also gives you a little something more to think about and think about differently.
Yeah, I love that. And the Hunger Heroes series, it's really like it's a book that you can really chew on, like ideas that you can chew on. Not it's a pun. I love puns, but also it's just the truth. Like
Yeah.
you take like a lot of people take food for granted or certain resources, but just
Sure.
to think that there are kids out there who don't have access to these resources, whether the resource is food, a breakfast, or books, it's just really shocking. And I just love that not only is the Hunger Heroes story fun and fast paced and unputdownable, as you said, but it's also just it's a good reminder to not take for granted the resources that you have access to, and
Yeah.
always remember that there are kids out there who may not have had breakfast, who may not be able to read these graphic novel chapter books.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah, I was going to say there's a line in the book that comes up a couple times that it's something a lot of people have said before me, but there's always more to someone's story than meets the eye. So hopefully it creates a little bit of more empathy in my readers too. So you look around and you say, huh, that kid didn't do good on his math test and he's fallen asleep in class. I wonder if there's more going on. Like maybe he's not just bored. Maybe he's not paying attention. Maybe there's something else going on, and maybe I can learn a little bit more and be a little bit kinder and gentler.
I just want to know how Kids Need Mentors got started and how we can get involved.
Yeah, so it was Ann Braden, Kristen Pacone, as you mentioned, and also Kristen Crouch, one other educator. So it was me and Ann. We are bookmakers, we're creators, authors, and I'm an illustrator as well, and as an author. And then two fifth grade teachers at the time. And we were friendly, and we were all sort of knew that we were passionate about author visits. I never had an author visit when I was a kid. And if I had been able to talk to an author, an illustrator, and learn about the process and learn how hard it was for them to make books, and that, just what it looked like and the effort that went into it, and had some sort of insight and encouragement, it would have changed my life. It would have allowed me to believe that I could do this thing way sooner than I actually believed it, which wasn't until college. Author visits can be, for any kid, informative and exciting, and get them more excited about books and reading. And then those kids who might want to be creators, either that just then or later on in life, they're sort of armed with this information, with some confidence that they can do it, because they've been given some insight, and they say, that person was just a normal human being. I can do this. And so for those reasons, it was so important to create these connections that were beyond just a single author visit. So the program pairs up authors and illustrators with classrooms for the entire year. And so instead of just getting to meet an author and say, I met that person once, you become friendly. You become mentor and mentee, and really friends. And some of our pairings that we did the first year, 3 or 4 years ago, those authors and those kids are still connected. They still interact, they still talk to each other, and they've got these lifelong connections. That's really cool.
Yeah,
And
that is. Oh yeah, you go ahead.
yeah, as you say, there's all sorts of great evidence and research about how powerful additional adult mentees in children's lives can be. Non-parental, non-relatives, it can be so powerful. And so we run the program every year. We're taking a little bit of a hiatus at the beginning of this school year for a variety of reasons, but then we'll be back very soon. And yeah, we mostly post information and signups and all that stuff on Twitter. So that's, if you follow us, you'll be able to get involved.
So I'm curious to know, what exactly is the Jarrett Learners Creator Club, and how can kids join? And like last question, how can we get involved and help?
Yeah, so I've been wanting to do this creator club for a while, and I finally got my act together and launched it this summer. And it's basically, well, something I say about my visits and my work with kids is that my goal is to leave them not impressed or not just impressed by what I can do, but impressed by what they can do.
Yeah.
I really want to teach them and give them the confidence in their own capabilities and the tools that they need to be creators right alongside me. And it's kind of selfish because I want them all to go out and make art and make books and comics and drawings so that I can read them. Because I want more stuff to read as a reader. And I think that kids have some of the greatest ideas when it comes to storytelling and creativity. Yeah, so what it is this summer, I put together a program. It's 6 weeks. We just finished our 5th week. And every week we have a club session and I pick a topic, or next week the kids are picking topics. And I share as much as I can with them, whether it's on the spot, me showing them how I work, giving them exercises, and giving them insight. I do it from my studio here. And so I've got all my notebooks, all my tablets, and all my books and stuff. It's basically just giving them access to me to ask questions and share things, and teaching them all I know about different topics, about drawing, comic making, character creating, story building, digital artwork we just did a session on. And yeah, it's gone great. And I'm actually having another baby, or my wife is having another baby in a couple weeks. And so the club, thank you. But then I'm planning to do more one-off creator clubs. So instead of a 6-week session, I'll just say, I'm going to do a club meeting on Saturday about comics. And then I'll put out signups and registration links, and kids can join. And maybe over winter break or spring break, and definitely again next summer, I'll do some more long-term clubs where you build upon each week. But yeah, it's been awesome. And, you know, a lot of negative things came out of the pandemic, but one of the positives, I think, one of the silver linings is that everyone got very adept and equipped to meet and hang out and be productive virtually. So it's no issue for these kids and their parents to hop on Zoom and use the chat feature. They know what they're doing. And so that's one good thing, is it really gave me the confidence that I could launch this and have my attendees know what they were doing, and that we could all sort of be productive and efficient and effective in that platform.
So aside from being a gifted author and illustrator and co-founding literacy programs, you're doing even more to promote literacy. From classroom visits to sharing fun activities to designing amazing bookish t-shirts, you're doing so much to inspire future generations of advocates. And I'm sure everyone listening, including myself, we just want to know, what are some things that we can do to help just lead the fight for literacy for all?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of amazing things. I don't know when this is going to air, but there's a conference that I know you'll be speaking at in August, that Molly Ness runs, and the Coalition for Literacy Equality. But in terms of just little things you can do every day, look around your community and see if you see any little free libraries. If you have your public library, if they take book donations, sometimes they'll give away books to kids in the community, to people in the community. I fill up little free libraries all the time when I see them. And you can just get involved and ask what's needed at the schools, at the libraries, asking what's most needed and getting some information. If there is a need, people are going to want to share it and be eager for your help. But even beyond that, if you can't donate books, if you don't have books that you're trying to get rid of at your house and you want to donate, or you can't, go buy some high interest books from the bookstore and donate them, you can volunteer in schools, in libraries. You can read to kids, do story times. All that sort of stuff is going to increase literacy. You can get involved in your kids' PTA and bring authors into schools, or get grants so that you can send kids home at the end of the summer with a book. If kids own books, they're more likely to identify as readers. They're more likely to read. Book ownership is a powerful, powerful tool in the fight for literacy for all. So there's just some things. And then obviously donating to organizations like First Book, We Need Diverse Books, and other organizations like that. If you want to purchase some bookish gear, my gear, I put the proceeds towards various organizations and initiatives. And also I see that you are a fan of Freedom, Freadom. They're another company that 100% of their net profits go towards literacy initiatives. And they've got all sorts of very cool apparel and other things like that. I was wearing a Freedom shirt earlier today. And then I went in the sprinklers with my daughters and had to change. But I wear Freedom stuff all the time too. So those are just a few things off the top of my head that very easy to get involved. Some of them you don't need money for too.
While doing research to prepare for our book talk, I searched online for graphic novels in verse and just kids' graphic novels in verse, but I didn't find really anything. So it looks like you're one of the very first, if not the first, to write and illustrate a graphic novel in verse. So this is very exciting and groundbreaking, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people interested in learning about the process of creating a graphic novel in verse, and just what started this journey, and how is it different from what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so the book you're talking about is called A Work in Progress. That's the title.
Yeah.
The final title. A lot of people think that I just haven't titled it yet, but that is the title. It comes out May 2023, and it's not quite a graphic novel. It's a highly illustrated novel in verse. Mm-hmm. And there are some comic-like elements to it. But this is a story. It's a little bit different from anything I've written in certain ways. It's a little more heavy and serious and dark, though there's plenty of brightness and lightness in it, and silliness even. But I've been trying to write this story for about 15 years, since I was in college. It's a very personal story. It's much of it is inspired by, influenced by my own personal experiences and journey and life. And I basically have tried dozens of times over the course of over a dozen years to tell this story and get it out of me and get it onto paper. For whatever reason, it's, authors get these ideas, these stories in their head, whether or not they're personal ones, and just they need to get them out. If it takes 1 year, if it takes 15 years. And I finally, after a dozen attempts of trying different things, landed on this idea of the book is a notebook. It reads, you open it up, it looks like a notebook. The cover, I haven't revealed yet, but it's a notebook cover, and then it's got some stuff on it. And it's like you're peering into a kid's private personal notebook. And this kid writes poems, little bursts of prose. He draws comics. He makes illustrations. He's an artsy kid. And so not until I landed on this idea of you sort of peering into a kid's private notebook did this story come out of me and work and feel right. So that's sort of where it came from. And working on it and developing it, it sort of grew and bloomed and blossomed and became the thing that it is now. But yeah, I've never seen a book quite like it, a novel in verse that's as heavily illustrated like this. And that really feels like a kid's notebook. Yeah, sometimes stories require certain forms. Sometimes certain stories are better told in prose. Certain stories are better told in verse. Some stories are better told without illustrations, with illustrations, in comics. And it took me a while to figure out that the form this particular story needed to be as powerful and impactful as it could be was something I hadn't seen before. This sort of amalgamation, a hybrid of variety of things. So that's where it came from. And I think, hopefully some people see this book and say, wow, I want to try to write a book in that form. I've got a story in me that I think would benefit from being told in this way. Maybe other people will try it out and give it a shot. But because it took me 15 years to find it, hopefully other people, if they like it, will just find it quicker.
So I believe graphic novels, and I know that you are also a big graphic novel supporter. So they're an extremely important type of, stories. They're just a wonderful piece of literature, but a lot of people think that they're not real books, when sometimes they're even more real than prose, because you're not just reading words, and words can sometimes be like, oh yeah, they're words. But when you actually see pictures, it can make that much more of an impact on you as a reader. So it can bring up more emotions and send even clearer messages, especially for younger readers. And I know that you're a huge supporter of graphic novels, as I said, having written quite a few of them yourself. Can you share how we can just kind of educate others that graphic novels are real books, if not more than just real books? And how can we kind of just show the world that they're important?
Yeah, I think one thing, I think one of the causes of this idea, there's a few. One is that our culture has, for a long time, popular culture has a long time looked down upon comics or seen them as less than. And there's sort of like a holdover of that sort of bleeds into people's approach to comics, whether or not they realize it. It's created a bias in a lot of people, which is unconscious for a lot of them. The other thing is, I think visual literacy is just not valued and made use of as much as it could be and should be in our educational system. We, throughout school, we sort of forget visual literacy once kids get to like first grade, even kindergarten. We don't focus on it. We don't use it. We don't make the most of it. We don't teach it. We don't talk about it. It just becomes verbal writing and reading. And that's paramount and exclusive sometimes. But visual literacy is hugely important and hugely powerful. And for kids especially, it's a way of reading and engaging with the world and learning and understanding their place in their world and expressing themselves. That's often more powerful and more visceral and more cerebral, more intellectual and intense than verbal. So for these types of kids, and I believe kids are more in touch with this, and our schooling sort of dulls our sense of it. But kids who are more in touch with this, when they read a graphic novel, it's often not less work. It's often more work. It's more reading. You're reading text, and you're also reading all of this visual literacy. You're reading expressions. You're reading posture. You're reading color choice. You're reading all sorts of artistic choices. What kind of line is it? Is it a wavy line? Is it a crisp line? What's the shadow doing? What are the angles? There's so many things that a visually fluent and visually sharp reader is going to be analyzing and picking apart and making sense and making meaning of. And that's just not understood or appreciated by a lot of adults. And what I do is when I meet adults who are anti-graphic novel or don't want their kids, or let them but treat them like Twinkies or ice cream, and then prose novels are broccoli, they're good for you, and one is like a treat. When I encounter people like that, I try to talk to them about it, maybe cite research if there's someone who's going to be influenced or moved by that. And I also challenge them to read one of the hundreds, maybe even thousands of brilliant, exceptional graphic novels that have been published in the past 5-10 years in children's literature, and say, you try to read that book and tell me that it's not a worthwhile experience for a kid. You've got Jerry Craft's graphic novels on your shelf behind you. You try to get any adult who reads that book and tells me that's not a profound, powerful, important book for kids to read and study. You know, if that doesn't convince them, then nothing will. You know, that's my take on it. A graphic novel isn't, a lot of people see it as half the story. You know, it's like, oh, there's only some words, so the pictures are there almost like as a crutch, like the pictures are doing some of the work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the pictures are requiring more work of the reader. It's not half the work, it's often double the work, because there's more information coming at you, and information that's both verbal and visual, that the reader needs to make sense of and is allowed to play around with and create meaning out of.
And I know that you've shared quite a bit about yourself on your blog and in other interviews, but is there like one fact, silly, serious, really anything about yourself that people might not know about you?
I share a lot about myself. One thing is I'm a big, I love food. I write about food a lot. I love cooking. I cook almost every night, with my wife and, or just for my family, for my kids. My wife's a great cook too. Sometimes she says she wants to cook too, so we take turns, but we both love it. And I love it. I like to bake. I also love skateboarding, and that's something that I talk about a lot. But a fun fact that I haven't shared publicly that I probably will share, we were talking about how I just moved before we started this podcast. I just bought a mini ramp for myself, a little half pipe, and it hasn't arrived yet, but soon it won't be a secret because I'm going to tell everyone in the world about it because I'm so excited once it comes. But I will have my childhood dream of having my own mini ramp on my property in my backyard. So that's a fun fact.
That is certainly a fun fact. I know I see ollies and flips in your future, and maybe some bruises as well.
Yeah, I've been doing it since I was 8 or 9, and bruises and cuts and falls are just part of it all.
So now it's time for the final question. The question I ask every single one of my guests. Ooh, ominous music in the background. If you could be or meet any literary character, fictional or real, who would it be and why?
Oh, man. Wow. So here is where my policy of not reading interview questions before the interview gets me into trouble, because now a question like this is much harder to answer and think on my feet. Wow. I guess I would say, you know, a question like this can have, I can come up with answers all day and have a billion different answers.
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun to meet the kids. I see some of his books on your shelf, so I'm guessing you're a fan of James Ponti.
Yes.
I would love to meet some of James Ponti's kids. Maybe the City Spies,
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe Florian from Framed and Vanished. But yeah, I think it would be really fun to meet some of those exceptional kids. He's got a way of writing where his characters really just leap off the page in such an intense way. So those are characters that are really alive to me in my head. And so I feel like meeting them would almost feel like getting to hang out with an old friend that you actually have never met before.
Yeah. I love the City Spies and Framed characters. I'm interviewing James Ponti in 6 days at the time of recording, so I have to get all the City Spies and Framed characters back in my head.
Them in your head.
Yep. And I love that answer because I first started reading James Ponti's books. Like I really didn't like fiction at the time. I wasn't a reluctant reader, but I was reluctant to kind of dive into different genres. I kind of stuck to nonfiction, which is really surprising. But when I read the Framed books and City Spies books, and really all the books by the Renegades of Middle Grade, I just kind of fell in love with realistic fiction and fantasy and just all these different genres because you guys have a way about your writing where you can really, it, like you said, they're unputdownable. They're truly unputdownable. And like at first, City Spies or maybe another book. It's also kind of hard to come up with books on the spot but just they might seem kind of hefty, but once you read the first page, you know that you're gonna love these characters, whether it's Brooklyn, Kat, Paris, Rio, and Sydney in City Spies, or who knows, maybe it's Mr. Toots from Heroes.
Yeah, you got to see if James says Mr. Toots is who he wants to hang out with. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think James's books, I think the City Spies books have gotten longer and longer each book. And every time I pick it up, I it's heftier and heftier. But as soon as I start reading, I say, I wish it was bigger. I wish I don't want those books to end. He's got a very he's one amazing author. I'm excited for you that you're going to get to interview him. He's one of the greats.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well, and I can't wait for the next City Spies book to come out and all of his novels and all the Renegades of Middle Grade. Because, like, when I first saw Renegades of Middle Grade conference, I was like, "Whoa!" I didn't know that all my favorite authors gathered into one webinar and talked about their books.
Yeah,
just so
it's cool. It's a fun group. We're all just pals and all just friends, and we all sort of have the same spirit and approach to this making books and inspiring kids thing. And it's always fun to get together and hang out and talk and share.
It sounds like a lot of fun and looks like a lot of fun. And everybody, my guest today has been author, illustrator, and literacy advocate, and just reading extraordinaire, Jarrett Lerner. Jarrett, it's been such an honor talking everything literacy with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, E. This was awesome. I'm so glad for the chance to chat with you, and you are an inspiration right back. So keep on inspiring all of us authors and illustrators and educators and kids.
I'll do my best. And to everyone listening, you can follow Jarrett on Twitter at Jarrett_Lerner. Also, if you don't really know what an underscore is, then I'll just put the link in the description. And to check out his blog, go to jarrettlerner.com/blog/ There are 2 slashes. Are they called slashes? I don't know. Anyway, that's all for today. To keep up to date with my interviews, you visit etraintalks.com and just stay safe, keep reading, and be a literacy advocate. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.